The red light on Fifth Avenue had never seemed to last so long. Jonathan Price, a 45-year-old businessman, drummed his fingers on the steering wheel of his Mercedes as he watched the typical Manhattan traffic when something froze his blood. A black boy of about 12 was weaving between the cars selling candy. But that wasn't what made Jonathan's eyes widen. It was what hung around the boy's thin neck. A silver necklace with a butterfly pendant encrusted with diamonds. The same necklace he had had specially made for Lily last Christmas. The same Lily who had disappeared 4 days ago without a trace. Jonathan opened the car door before he even thought about it. "Hey kid, wait." The boy, Jordan, although Jonathan didn't know that yet, jumped up and started running. It wasn't paranoia. It was street experience. A rich white man yelling at him never meant anything good. "Please, I just want to talk about this necklace." Jonathan ran after him, ignoring the angry honking of cars stuck in traffic. "Where did you get this?" Jordan stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, panting. His brown eyes sized Jonathan up with the precocious wisdom of someone who had learned to survive on his own. "I didn't steal anything, sir. I swear to God I didn't." "I know you didn't steal it," Jonathan said, trying to control his trembling voice. "That necklace, it belonged to my daughter. She's missing." Jordan hesitated. There was something in this man's voice that didn't sound like the others. It wasn't anger or accusation. It was pure desperation. "I found a girl," he whispered finally. "She was hurt, hiding in an abandoned building in the Bronx. I thought she was dead, but she gave me this and asked me to find her father." Jonathan's world spun. Where is she?" "I took care of her for 3 days. She's alive, but..." Jordan bit his lip. "She told me things about who did this to her. And sir, I don't think this was a normal kidnapping." Jonathan felt something cold run up his spine. For 4 days, he had begged the police, hired private investigators, and offered rewards. But it was a street kid, someone society didn't even see, who had found his daughter. "Take me to her now." Jonathan pulled out his car keys. "Okay, but there's something you need to know first," Jordan said quietly, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. "Before I found Lily, I saw who left her there. And if I'm right about who it was," he paused. "You're not going to like this." Jonathan stopped. "What do you mean?" Jordan looked him straight in the eye. "It was someone she knew, someone you trusted. And from the way he sounded on the phone while I was listening in, this was all planned to destroy you, too. If your heart is racing with this story of betrayal and mystery, subscribe to the channel because what Jordan discovered about the kidnapper's true identity will shock you as much as it shocked Jonathan, and the revenge they plan together is more satisfying than any justice you've ever seen." Jordan looked around once more before motioning for Jonathan to head toward the subway. "She's in the Bronx, but we can't take your car. It's too flashy. And sir," he hesitated, "when we get there, don't yell or anything. She's really scared." During the 40-minute subway ride, Jordan recounted details that made Jonathan's stomach churn. Lily had been hiding in the basement of an abandoned building for 3 days, dehydrated with marks on her wrists as if she had been tied up. Even more disturbing, she had whispered the name Uncle William several times, always followed by tears. William Mitchell, Jonathan's best friend for 20 years, Lily's godfather, a minority partner in the company, the man who had comforted the family when Lily's mother died the previous year. The same William who had insisted that Jonathan hire more private security in recent weeks, claiming to have bad feelings about the family's safety. "Here," Jordan whispered, stopping in front of a red brick building covered in graffiti. "She's in the basement. I got her some water and snacks, but she's barely eating." Jonathan followed Jordan down the dark stairs, his heart beating so hard he was sure it echoed through the damp hallway. And then he saw her. Lily, his 9-year-old girl, huddled in a corner on a dirty mattress, clutching a teddy bear Jonathan had never seen before. "Daddy." Her voice was a hoarse whisper. When she lifted her face, Jonathan saw dark circles under her eyes and a look that no child should have, the look of someone who had seen things that would haunt her forever. Jonathan rushed to her, wrapping his arms around her carefully, as if she were made of glass. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe now." But as he held his daughter, his mind was racing. How did William know where to look? Why had he suggested hiring security just now? And more importantly, what kind of monster does this to a child? "Daddy," Lily whispered in his ear. "Uncle William said it was a game that you knew about it, but then he got angry on the phone, yelling at someone about money and contracts. He said," she trembled. "He said that if I told anyone, something bad would happen to you, too." Jordan watched the scene with his arms crossed. "Sir, there's more. She told me about your company. This Uncle William, he was talking on the phone about transferring money, about signing some papers while you were distracted looking for Lily." Jonathan felt the blood drain from his body. Over the past 3 days, while he had been desperately searching for his daughter, William had temporarily taken over some of his responsibilities at the company. He had access to the accounts, the contracts, the clients, and Jonathan had given him permission to do everything, trusting his best friend blindly. "He dropped his cell phone once," Jordan continued. "I heard him talking to someone. When he finds out what happened to the company, his daughter's pain will seem like nothing." And then he laughed, Jordan concluded. "Sir," he laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. Jonathan closed his eyes, hugging Lily tighter. 20 years of friendship, of trust, of sharing joys and sorrows. William had been by his side when his wife died. He had held Lily in his arms at the hospital. He had been the first to offer help when she disappeared. And now, Jonathan understood why William had insisted so strongly that he not involve the police right away. "Let's give it a few more hours," he had said. "Maybe she's just lost." The police could complicate things unnecessarily. A few more hours for him to complete his financial sabotage. Jordan crouched down beside them. "Sir, I know this is hard to hear, but there's something you need to know about this man." He looked Jonathan straight in the eye. "He's not doing this alone. Yesterday morning, when I brought Lily her food, I saw him talking to 2 other men in suits near here. I recognized one of them from television. He's that politician who always talks about family and traditional values." Jonathan's world began to spin. This wasn't just personal betrayal. It was a conspiracy involving powerful people, and he had been the perfect target, a man vulnerable from the recent loss of his wife, completely focused on his business, trusting those closest to him blindly. But as he held Lily and looked at Jordan, a boy whom society had made invisible, but who had been the only one to truly help his family, something changed inside Jonathan. The pain was turning into something more dangerous, determination. "Jordan," he said quietly. "Do you want to help bring these men down?" The boy nodded without hesitation. "Then we're going to have to be a lot smarter than they think we are." Because what William and his accomplices didn't know was that Jonathan hadn't risen to the top of the business world by being naive. And now, with the truth revealed and an unlikely ally at his side, the revenge that was taking shape would be more devastating than anything they could have imagined. Over the next 24 hours, while Lily recovered in a private hospital under a false name, Jonathan did something William would never have expected. He stopped searching for his daughter publicly. He canceled the media alerts, dismissed the private investigators, and told everyone he needed time to process the situation. William called 3 times that first day, his voice heavy with fake concern. "Jonathan, my friend, you can't give up now. Lily needs you to be strong." It was almost impressive how sincere he sounded, knowing exactly where she was the entire time. But Jonathan wasn't giving up. He was planning. And his first move was something no millionaire businessman would ever do. He temporarily moved into a modest apartment in the Bronx, 3 blocks from where Jordan lived on the streets. Because if there was going to be a war, he needed real intelligence, not expensive detectives William could buy. Jordan proved to be a more valuable ally than Jonathan could ever have imagined. The kid knew every corner of that neighborhood, every homeless person, every broken camera, and every blind spot in the city's surveillance network. More importantly, he was completely invisible to people like William and his henchmen. "Mr. Jonathan," Jordan said one morning, returning from one of his reconnaissance missions. That politician I saw talking to Uncle William, I found out where he stays when he comes to the Bronx. The boy smiled. And it's not somewhere he'd want his wife to know about. But the real stroke of luck came when Jonathan met Isabella Rodriguez, a financial crimes attorney who worked pro bono at a local legal clinic. She was 38, had grown up in the same neighborhood as Jordan, and hated powerful men who abused the system. "Let me get this straight," Isabella said, reviewing the documents Jonathan had brought her. "Your best friend kidnapped his daughter to buy time to loot his company, and now he's pretending to help you look for her." She laughed bitterly. "Typical. And I bet he already has a plan to come out looking like the hero in the end." Isabella was right. Through contacts unknown to William, Jonathan discovered that his best friend had devised a plan to find Lily in a dramatic staging within 48 hours. He would be the hero who saved his friend's daughter, earning eternal gratitude, and no one would suspect that he had orchestrated the whole thing. Meanwhile, Jordan became the perfect spy. William and his accomplices spoke freely around him as if he were a piece of furniture. The boy discovered names, meeting places, even bank account passwords mentioned in careless conversations. "They're meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at an Italian restaurant on the east side," Jordan reported. "The politician will receive $50,000 for his cooperation, and there's a third man, someone from the police department, who's making sure the kidnapping investigation doesn't get close to the truth." Jonathan felt a cold, calculating anger take hold of him. William had not only betrayed a 20-year friendship. He had corrupted police officers and politicians, turned the kidnapping of an innocent child into an elaborate hoax to cover up corporate theft. But Isabella had the best news of all. "Jonathan, do you know that William made a fatal mistake?" She showed him bank documents she had obtained through legal contacts. "He moved the money from your company using wire transfers that leave permanent traces. What's more, to speed up the process, he used his own personal account as a bridge." "What does that mean?" "It means we have irrefutable documentary proof that he stole from you. These aren't just suspicions or theories. It's evidence that no expensive lawyer could contest." That night, while Lily slept peacefully in a safe hospital room, Jonathan looked out the window of the modest apartment where he was staying. Jordan was teaching some younger boys how to play chess on a makeshift board. It was a scene that made him think about who really mattered in life. "Jordan," he said when the boy climbed up. "Tomorrow, we're going to put our plan into action. But first, I need you to know that after this is all over, you're not going back to the streets ever." Jordan looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Are you sure? I'm not like you guys. I don't know how to be rich." "You don't need to be rich, Jordan. You need to be free. And after what we do tomorrow, William and all his powerful friends will learn that underestimating people like us was the biggest mistake of their lives." Because while William thought he had orchestrated the perfect crime, he hadn't accounted for three crucial variables: the determination of a desperate father, the intelligence of an invisible boy who heard everything, and the wrath of an entire community that was about to discover how rich men toyed with human lives for the sake of greed. The meeting at the Italian restaurant was set for Tuesday. But William and his accomplices didn't know that their every word would be recorded, every transaction documented, and every lie exposed on camera, turning their private betrayal into a devastating public humiliation. What none of them realized was that Jonathan had learned something fundamental about revenge during those days in the Bronx. Sometimes the best strategy is not to attack from the top down with power and money, but from the bottom up with truth and justice, especially when you have allies your enemies can't even see. Tuesday arrived with a gray sky that seemed to anticipate the storm that was about to break over William Mitchell. At 2 o'clock sharp, he entered the East Side Italian restaurant wearing his $3,000 suit, smiling with the confidence of someone who believes he has orchestrated the perfect crime. Jordan was strategically positioned at a corner table, pretending to be just another delivery boy. No one paid any attention to him, exactly as planned. The discreet microphone sewn into his jacket picked up every word with crystal clarity, transmitting everything to Isabella, who was monitoring from a van parked 2 blocks away. "Gentlemen," William said, Greeting Congressman Thomas and Detective Johnson. I hope you appreciate expensive champagne because today we celebrate our complete victory. What William didn't know was that Jonathan had spent the last 48 hours not only gathering evidence but building a network of exposure that would turn this private meeting into a devastating public spectacle. 3 hidden cameras captured different angles of the table. 2 investigative journalists waited outside. And most importantly, the live feed was already being sent to a social media account with over 200,000 followers. $50,000 for you, Thomas, William said, sliding an envelope across the table. And $30,000 for Johnson, for keeping the investigation off us. He laughed arrogantly. Jonathan still thinks we're looking for his daughter. Pathetic. It was then that Jordan calmly stood up and walked over to their table. Excuse me, gentlemen, he said with a politeness that contrasted with his simple clothes. My name is Jordan, and I have something that belongs to you. William frowned, irritated. Kid, I don't know who you are, but... I found Lily, Jordan interrupted, his voice gaining a firmness that made the 3 men freeze. I'm the one who heard every word you've said over the last 4 days. And I'm the one broadcasting this conversation live to the entire world right now. William's face drained of color. What are you talking about? Jordan smiled, no longer the smile of a vulnerable boy, but of someone who had learned to play chess with masters. Look around you, gentlemen. See that woman reading the newspaper? She's an investigative reporter. The man at the bar? Federal attorney. And those 3 people who walked in 5 minutes ago? FBI agents. Thomas tried to stand, but his leg shook so badly he almost fell. That's impossible. We were careful. You were arrogant, said a familiar voice behind them. Jonathan Price appeared, walking calmly toward the table, followed by Isabella and 2 federal agents. You underestimated a desperate father, a brilliant lawyer, and especially a boy you couldn't even see. William stood up abruptly, panic finally overcoming his composure. Jonathan, you don't understand. I can explain all of this. We've been friends for 20 years. Friends don't kidnap their friends' daughters, Jonathan replied with icy calm. Friends don't steal their friends' companies, and friends certainly don't laugh about causing psychological trauma to a 9-year-old child. Isabella opened a thick folder. William Mitchell, you're formally charged with kidnapping, extortion, money laundering, corruption of public officials, and criminal conspiracy. She looked at Thomas and Johnson. You, too, gentlemen. But the real devastation was yet to come. Jordan pulled out a tablet, showing the screen to the 3 men. Want to see something interesting? Our live stream already has over 500,000 views. The comments are, well, you can imagine. The screen showed a flood of indignant messages. #Justice for Lily was trending. William Mitchell's name was being associated with child abductor and psychopathic traitor in thousands of posts. His company had lost 40% of its market value in 2 hours. His wife had already posted a statement publicly divorcing him. Thomas was hyperventilating. My career, my family. I have children. Lily has a family, too, Jonathan said coldly. Did you think about that when you decided to participate in her trauma for $30,000? Johnson tried to negotiate. I can hand over information on other cases. I can cooperate with the justice system. Too late to try to be a hero, Isabella said. You had a 20-year career to do the right thing. You chose to do the wrong thing when you thought no one was watching. As the 3 men were handcuffed, William made one last desperate attempt. Jonathan, please. We grew up together. You were best man at my wedding. This can't end like this. Jonathan stared at him for a long moment. You're right, William. This can't end like this. He paused. This needs to end with complete justice. And then came the final blow. Isabella showed him another document. William, do you remember the transfer you made using your personal account as a bridge? Well, it turns out that wasn't just evidence of theft. It was evidence of tax evasion. She smiled. The IRS wants to talk to you about the last 10 years of your tax returns. It looks like you owe the government about $2 million in unpaid taxes. At that moment, William Mitchell realized the full magnitude of his destruction. It wasn't just prison. It was total bankruptcy, public divorce, children who would change their last names, a reputation that would never recover, and decades in prison. As he was led away by the agents, William looked back one last time. Jonathan was hugging Jordan, and both were watching through the restaurant window as a small crowd had gathered outside, applauding the arrest being broadcast live. How, William muttered to himself, how did a street kid and a desperate man manage to destroy me so completely? The answer was simple, but William would never understand it. They hadn't underestimated anyone, while he had underestimated everyone. And in this game of power, those who underestimate always lose everything. In the center of that restaurant, where minutes earlier corruption and cruelty had been celebrated, a new reality was now taking shape, like a symphony that finally finds its harmony after years of dissonant notes, proving that true justice knows no social class, skin color, or limitations imposed by those who confuse power with impunity. 6 months later, Jonathan Price was sitting in the office of Price & Associates, the new consulting firm he had founded after selling his stake in his previous company. Through the panoramic window, he looked out at Manhattan from a completely different perspective. It was no longer just about profit. It was about purpose. Jordan knocked on the door holding a thick folder. Now 13, he wore the uniform of the prestigious St. Andrew's Preparatory School, but he had the same determination in his eyes. Mr. Jonathan, the foundation reports are in. We got another 250 kids off the streets this quarter. The Jordan and Lily Foundation, created with some of the money recovered from William's scheme, had become a national model for child protection programs. Lily, now 10 and in therapy, had insisted that she take Jordan's name as well. He saved me first, she had said simply. Isabella entered shortly after, now a partner in the firm and legal director of the foundation. I have news about our old friends, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. William was sentenced to 25 years without parole. Thomas lost his re-election by 82% of the vote, the biggest defeat in the state's political history. And Johnson, she laughed bitterly. He's serving drinks at a roadside bar in Nevada. But the consequences went far beyond prison. The live video of the arrest had gone viral with over 50 million views. #NeverUnderestimate became a social movement. 3 documentaries were produced about the case. More importantly, dozens of other cases of corruption came to light after ordinary people realized they had the power to confront injustice. Jonathan looked at the framed photo on his desk. Him, Lily, and Jordan on the day of the official adoption. Jordan had chosen to keep his original last name, but he was now legally Lily's brother. I want to honor where I came from, he had explained. But I also want to belong somewhere. That afternoon, the 3 of them were driving home from Lily's school when she asked a question none of them expected. Dad, have you forgiven Uncle William? Jonathan stopped driving for a moment. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, Lily. It means not letting someone's anger control your life. William chose to be cruel, but we chose to be better. Jordan nodded thoughtfully. On the streets, you learn that revenge is different from justice. Revenge is about hurting those who hurt you. Justice is about preventing them from hurting other people. Lily smiled. And it's also about building something better, right? That was exactly right. Jonathan's company now employed exclusively people who had been underestimated by the system, former homeless people, rehabilitated ex-convicts, skilled immigrants, people with disabilities. Productivity was 28% above the industry average, and turnover was nearly zero. Jordan had become a speaker at schools, telling his story to thousands of young people. You are not invisible, he would say. You are underestimated, and that is your greatest advantage because when no one expects anything from you, anything you do surprises them. That night during dinner, Jonathan received a call. It was the governor wanting to discuss a state partnership for the social reintegration program Jordan had helped develop. When he hung up, he found his 2 children looking at him with pride. "You know what impresses me most about all this," said Lily, playing with a butterfly necklace she now wore all the time. "Uncle William thought he knew Dad, but he only knew who Dad pretended to be to make people like him. When he saw who Dad really was, it was too late." Jordan laughed. "It's like chess. You let your opponent think he's winning while you position your pieces. By the time he realizes what's happening, the game is over." Meanwhile, in a federal penitentiary 400 miles away, William Mitchell sat in a small cell, rereading for the 1000th time the news about the success of the family he had tried to destroy. His wife had remarried. His children had changed their last names. His assets had been auctioned off to pay damages. What tormented him most was not that he had lost everything. It was knowing that Jonathan and Jordan had built something greater than he ever could. While he destroyed out of envy, they created out of love. Jonathan closed his laptop that night, satisfied. The table next to him was covered with drawings Lily had made. The whole family together, including Isabella, who had become more than just a partner. They were living proof that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. Jordan walked into the room to say good night, as he had done every night for the past 6 months. "Mr. Jonathan, can I ask you a question?" "Always." "Do you think all this would have happened if Uncle William hadn't been so greedy?" Jonathan thought for a moment. "Maybe not, Jordan. Sometimes bad people do us the greatest favor of our lives by showing us who we really are when we're tested." And that was exactly what it was. William had tried to break a family, but ended up forging an even stronger one. He had tried to steal a child's future, but ended up giving him a home. He had tried to destroy a man, but ended up revealing a hero. The real victory wasn't seeing William in prison. It was seeing Lily laugh again, Jordan graduate with honors, and hundreds of other families reunited through the foundation that was born out of pain and turned into hope. Because in the end, the best revenge is never destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so meaningful that their evil becomes irrelevant. Proving that love and justice always win when brave people decide not to accept injustice as their inevitable fate. If this story of courage, family, and justice touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true heroes are those who turn their greatest pains into purpose, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what really matters in life.